So welcome guys to Big Book Solutions, our private, special, exclusive VIP meeting.
Super private.
Very exclusive today.
Yeah, that's good.
So if you're hearing this later in a recording, my name's Natalie. I'm an alcoholic and I'm here with Michaelis. And we host the Real Recovery AA Big Book Solutions podcast, available everywhere. And this is just a private AA meeting. So, well, it's not even an AA meeting, I guess. We talk about AA themed subjects, but it's not an official meeting. So, this is just informal. We're here to share experience, strength, and hope with people that we are in the Big Book study process with, which is a life-changing solution. I'm hearing my Thai neighbor speaking. So this is the purpose of why we're here, is just to share experience, strength, and hope in an informal setting and kind of through the context of our Big Book study. So it is AA, it is 12 steps, but there might be some different themes or different thoughts or ideas or perspectives than you might hear. So those of us who are in the book, we're all kind of doing the same process together. So this is a place to come, ask questions, share about our specific Big Book study. And Michaelis is the one who took me through the process, and I'm taking, the people that I'm working with through. So that's a long meandering introduction about why we're here. So, hi Holly, thank you all for coming. Hey. Got America represent today. Everybody's in America but me. We'll just go ahead and open the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. You don't have to unmute yourself. You can, up to you, whatever. So God, oh no, we don't do the Serenity Prayer. We do our takeaway prayer. That's right. So the prayer that we open our Big Book study with. God, take away everything I think I know about this book, about this process, and about you, God, so that I can have an experience with you. All right. Excuse me. So today, our meeting, if you joined us before, if you've heard our meetings before, we've kind of gone through most of the 12 steps. This process organically started almost a year ago when I just asked Michaelis to share his experience, strength, and hope with all the people I was working in the book with. And so then it's kind of evolved into, doing step themed meetings. So I've asked Michaelis to come here today to talk about steps 10 and 11. And, I know when I went through this part of the process and these steps, it was quite interesting perspective. I hadn't heard step 10 described in the way we describe it in the study. And I just wanted to have Michaelis share about that. And if anyone has questions or comments or wants to share after that, we will do that. And we will end, if not before, right on the hour. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Michaelis.
Cool, thanks, Nat. I'm Michaelis, I'm an alcoholic. And step 10. So, before I did the book study thing, I really didn't know what step 10 was. I thought basically I just needed to do a 4-column inventory every day. And then for a while, I was given these worksheets that have the upon awakening and upon retiring, like that whole thing at night, basically going over my day and, you know, and that's what I did for my step 10. I fill out these little worksheets and I'd hand them over to my sponsor. I'd email them my sponsor or whatever. Sometimes he would talk to me about them, but most of the time he didn't. And that was that, you know, but I didn't necessarily make amends. I didn't necessarily talk to God about it. I didn't necessarily, you know, really do much of anything else. And I certainly wasn't like launching myself into helping another person. So when I did the book work, it was really specific about step 10, and basically that it's this 5-step process, right? The first thing is that I need to be aware of when I'm in resentment, fear, selfishness, or dishonesty, right? So I need to just like check out like how am I, you know, what am I feeling in this moment? And then if I'm feeling any of those kind of feelings, I need to ask God to remove that stuff from me. So that's the second step. The third step is to talk to another human being about that stuff. And it doesn't say necessarily my sponsor, it can literally be anybody. The fourth thing is that I need to make amends if I need to make amends. And that's something that's going to come up in the discussion with another human being, or, you know, I'm intuitively going to know that I need to clean up some wreckage. And then the fifth part of step 10 is resolutely turning my thoughts so I can help another person, right? So that's kind of like the forgotten part of step 10. And it also doesn't fall in line with the idea that we have in the fellowship today of you really can't help anybody the way that we help people until you've worked all the steps. Because the process that we go through is basically as soon as you get a few pages of this book, you are able to take as many people through those pages. And that's how we treat the entire disease holistically. And so because by the time I got to step 10, I built up a stable of people to work with, where I was working with multiple people a day, finding that person to resolutely turn my thoughts to was really easy, you know, because that was already a part of my day. I'd already had it scheduled. Sometimes I'd even look, you know, it's just there. It's like in the next hour or something. So that was kind of the importance of going through this process while taking people through this process. Now, there's other stuff in step 10 that I think is really important to know. And one of those things is that sanity returns. So often I hear in meetings about these people with the multiple decades of sobriety still sharing about their insane thinking, you know, not being able to trust their thinking. And to me, that always resonated with me because I couldn't trust my thinking. I was a mess. But it's also not really a message of hope. And it's not the message of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So one of the beautiful things about this process is that today I do trust my thinking. The reason why I trust my thinking today is that for the last 12 years, I've aligned my thinking with God thought, which is another part of step 10 that I hadn't heard before either. You know, it literally tells us what God's will is, which to me was a mystery in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I used to think that God's will was whatever it was, right? Well, whatever was happening was God's will. And that my job was to just accept that, you know? And that was not a very adequate conception, because if you look out into the world, there's a lot of really fucked up shit happening to a lot of people. And if that's what God's will is, then my God is fucked. And so I like this other idea of God's will, where it's basically, how can I best serve thee? And the only reason that made sense to me is because I read We Agnostics. And We Agnostics posed the question of, you know, I need to either decide whether God is everything or God is nothing. What is my choice to be? And if I choose that God is everything, then how can I best serve thee? Thee being capitalized, meaning God, means how can I best serve everything? So it changed God's will from what is to the attitude that I bring to what is. And that's really the difference. And again, that's a practice. It's something that goes against the human condition. There was a part of me that liked, you know, what was, and being that place of being a victim to the world around me because it felt easy, even though it was really painful. But this was a new practice. This was, how can I be the blessing to the moment that's in front of me? It says we can exercise our will along these lines all we wish. It's the proper use of the will, and the will is the thinking, right? So that I really loved. That was really eye-opening for me. And I had also had a lot of experience with feeling that it was God's will, because it felt right to be the blessing. It felt right to be kind and loving. It, lifted me up. It gave me energy. It built my self-esteem. I felt in the flow of the world. Um, all that good stuff, And when they say we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, I mean, that's really the place that I got to be at. And that's based on the fact that I've used this book as a tool to practice being the blessing as much as I possibly can. And I continue to do it today. I continue to look, even though I'm filled with people, my days are filled with people that I'm working with, I'm still looking for more, always. I'm still saying yes. And because I know it's just that, it's that thing that I need to do to continue that training of practicing being the light of God. Step 11. I struggled with step 11. I just avoided it, to be honest with you. I was not a meditator. I was like diagnosed with ADHD. I didn't think I could sit alone anywhere and just quiet my thoughts. I thought meditation was you had to quiet your mind, like with this intention of like reaching the state of like inner Zen where there's just thoughtlessness. And I would just sit there closing my eyes in some position and just be so frustrated with the fact that I just couldn't shut my mind off. They give these suggestions in the big book, and that's where the upon awakening, think about the day ahead. And then whatever. When we retire at night, think about the day that we just lived. And truthfully, for me, those are not like great suggestions, because if I'm going to like sit there in silence in a room and think about what the day was like that I just lived, most likely I'm going to sit in morbid reflection. I'm going to beat myself up for this thing I didn't do over here. That person I like was weird too over there. And like, that's just going to turn into a long sort of internal dialogue of self-obsession, and if I start doing the whole meditation of planning my day ahead, I will be leaning towards the rigidity of my plans, which what I experience is a limiting version of my life, because my human plans are nowhere near what the universe has in store for me, so I don't really follow those suggestions. So what happened for me was, like I said, I avoided meditation for a long time. I was dating this waitress from Swingers, hipster. She was kind of depressed and dark. She was kind of like Wednesday Addams, actually, but like a waitress at Swingers. And I don't know how we ended up together, but she wanted to go take a meditation course. And she found this dude in Venice Beach, California, and his name was Light, which I thought was like literally the lamest name I had ever heard in my entire life. And I remember going and walking into this white house in Venice, California, and there was this beautiful, tall, svelte African-American man sitting in front of me named Light. And, I think my initial reaction was like, oh, now I see why she wanted to take me here, but it was cool. Like we sat, there was a whole group of us, and he explained us Vedic meditation, which is transcendental meditation, which is a mantra meditation. And he broke it down to, very small increments in the beginning. And there was a whole process of like, paying for the class through doing offerings and all that stuff like that. It was very like, actually reminded me of a ceremony, actually. It was really cool. And I remember sitting for a couple minutes like the first time, and then we moved it up to 5 minutes the next time, then 10 minutes the next time, then 15 minutes the next time, and 20 minutes the next time. and doing these slow increments. And because I was able to repeat a mantra over and over and over in my mind, I just leaned on that. I leaned on that to sort of like combat the other thoughts that were going in my head at the beginning. And eventually, just sort of would slip away and disappear. And I would have these spaces of emptiness, and that was actually happening right away. And I had this really crazy experience right away that I'm like kind of weary to share because it's so bizarre, but I know Natalie likes that woo-woo shit, so I'm going to share it anyway. Where I was like sitting in this, lotus position on this floor, and I was in meditation, and I looked down and I just saw, literally, I could see my whole body, but it was not made of flesh. It was literally all made of strands of light. And I was just like, oh, this is trippy. And this is before I'd ever like read that passage in the book. If I really understand who I am, I'm the light of God. It was just like, that's what I saw. And so anyway, I started being really diligent with that practice. And because it was easy, and I just found out that, what my head told me I was not capable of doing was something that I was absolutely capable of doing. And that is a common theme in my life. And one of the other things I learned about meditation is that, it allowed me to not take my thoughts so seriously. Because the truth is that I can be sitting in a room with absolutely nothing going on, in total silence. And I can have thoughts that can provoke emotions. But the truth of my existence in that moment is that nothing is happening, which just allows me to understand like how powerful this thing is and how this really does sculpt my experience on this earth. And when I was able to like harness the power of the pause and the power of choice to really improve my way of life through choosing my perception, therefore choosing my feeling, therefore choosing my experience, that changed everything. And that really, was a lesson that I learned from that meditation practice. So I moved to Bali. I met with a Balinese friend of mine who deemed me his brother, and he took me to his gurus and he took me to his priests, and I was able to learn how to pray and meditate with them. And he got me these special Javanese wooden beads that have like 3 different kinds of wood and whatever that is supposed to be just blessed by the priest and blah, blah, blah. And I started doing beaded meditation. And then I did, Balinese Hindu ceremonial meditation, and just, any kind of practice. I'm just open to anything. I do loving kindness meditation. Sometimes I put on an insight timer and listen to meditation. It's like I'll do whatever I can to get into whatever space I need, and I always switch it up to kind of make it interesting. And today, I actually feel like I'm living in a meditation. I really feel, and it's strange because I'm in Los Angeles right now, and I literally thought for my entire time in the last 8 years that I really needed to be in Bali in order to like resonate with the spiritual ground that I was walking. But here I am in LA, doing things like going to the DMV twice, going to the IRS, going to the bank, going to the phone company, and literally walking with so much peace and in so much like presence that I feel like experience and everything. I'm just really grateful because it just lets me know that just when I think that there's no leveling up from this process of taking people through the book, there is absolutely 100% like more levels, deeper levels, higher levels. And I am just so grateful. I'm 100% sure that I'm in line with my purpose on this earth. My life is very simple. It's very like living in faith based, which means that I don't have to know anything because everything that's being presented to me is the absolute best for me. And yeah, so that's my experience with step 11 today, but literally all these things are conditional for me personally on practicing being the blessing. So there is no step 10 or step 11 with that for me. So I think that that's all I'm going to share about that. And thanks.
Thank you so much, Michaelis. Very illuminating, very inspiring. Yeah, and just very much, like I said, a different perspective on 10 and 11, a little bit than what we hear in meetings. It's kind of like, oh, what you hear in meetings is not necessarily what's in the book kind of thing. So before I say anything, I just would like to ask and open the floor if anybody has questions or comments about what Michaelis shared about your own experience, or questions on steps 10 and 11. And you can just unmute and speak if you would like. And I'm happy to talk, but I thought I would let you guys go first. Hola, Julio, welcome. So, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and share. Yeah, my experience up until now, or up until recently, with step 10 was, in the early days, I thought that was the nightly inventory. And then Michaelis, I don't know if you can speak to this, but isn't it true, like in the 12 and 12, step 10 is just a completely different thing, right? Do you know about that? You don't know. You're just like,
I literally avoid the 12 and 12 at all costs. I think the only steps that I really read diligently in the 12 and 12 were steps 6 and 7, because those steps, like I felt, like I was missing something, right, for so long. But I don't remember. Oh, I used to do a 10 at 12 meeting. Yeah, I remember the spiritual axiom, blah, blah, blah. I remember that whole, yeah, totally. Because whenever we see something wrong with something else, something's wrong with us. Yeah, I don't remember honestly what the step 10 is in the 12 and 12. It's been a long time.
okay. Yeah, that spiritual axiom is good stuff. But I think, and please, somebody else, if you know, I think that it gives, like, okay, there's the spot check inventory, there's the nightly inventory. It gives these different flavors in the 12 and 12. So I think that kind of contributes to what, everything that you hear in meetings that may be different from the big book. But yeah, when I went through this with Michaelis, and it's like, it's just one paragraph and it's 5 simple steps, like he broke down, that was really eye-opening for me, because, I was, like he said, going through my years of sobriety, there would be, there was like columns within the nightly inventory, and just seeing where I'm wrong, seeing where I fucked up. And I think there is a part in that where you're supposed to like see things you did good, but the kind of alcoholic and addict that I've been, I don't care about that. Like, my mind wants to just tear myself down and point out all the things that I'm doing wrong. I'm very comfortable with that, not in looking at, oh, what did I do good today? And it's just like the energy of doing that, it's just shitty. It's just like, I've always felt like I'm never enough anyway, and not good enough anyway. Like, okay, let's look at where I'm doing this every single day, where I'm falling short. So to me, it wasn't helpful. It wasn't a helpful process, because of this kind of addiction to just making myself bad and wrong all the time anyway. So in my early years of sobriety, I mean, I did it off and on, never with much consistency. when apps came out and phones, and I did have a period where I was using like an app that has like the step 10 inventory, and I would do that as well. But I kind of just did it because it was part of the steps, but I really can't remember getting much out of it. The step 10, as it's in the book, is Michaelis outlined those 5 steps. I'm not rigid with that in my current practice, and since learning, what's in the book about that, maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be helpful for me to have that top of mind as I go through my day, and to be aware and, do these step-by-step things. But I kind of feel like it's more a way of life. And maybe in the beginning, maybe if it's somebody's first time through the steps, in your first couple years of sobriety, I could see where it could be helpful to have that and be like, oh, okay, being aware, asking God for help, telling somebody what's going on, making amends if I need, and then helping somebody else. But I kind of feel like that's kind of just how I live today. I mean, not always, but to the best of my ability. And I love what he said about just what God's will is. And correct me if I'm wrong, Michaelis, or maybe you can clarify it, because it was kind of a really subtle distinction when you talked about like and like the world's fucked. And so yeah, can you explain that bit again? Because it was really good, and I don't think I have a full grasp of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, all I just said is that God's will is not what is, it's what we bring to what is, the attitude that we bring to what is. So it's what we bring to the moment. Mm-hmm. So how can I best serve thee? How can I best serve this moment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's not needing anything to change.
No, it's being the light everywhere, all the time, But understanding that that's a practice. It's not natural for the human condition to be the light, because we do want to take, because we want to make sure that we get ours, all that sort of selfish and self-centered behavior, which is, masked as like self-preservation, because a lot of us are in fear. So it takes a certain amount of faith to bless and be selfless and understand the universe, this invisible thing, is going to give. Look at it from like a logical standpoint, like all the gifts that I have in my life today, even all the opportunities, come from the relationships that I have. And the relationships I have today are because I practice being the blessing. So it winds up working out on a human level in that sense. Make sense?
Yeah, that's good clarification. Thank you. So it reminds me just that, like, how can I show up and live unconditionally? How can I be in the present moment as much as possible, serving the moment in front of me from a place of faith instead of a place of fear, and just trusting. And it's God as I don't understand God. Like everything that's happening in the world, if I try and think I know the mind of higher power and try and figure out why, and motives, and it's going to make me crazy. So I don't need to know why. I just need to trust that higher power is bigger than me. And like Michaelis said, God is either everything or God is nothing. And if I come from that place, then I can do my best to trust. So I feel like that's really high level, stuff that it's good for me to shoot for, and not beat myself up when I am human like I am. So yeah. And then part of step 10 is like, he touched on the step 10 promises. It's just like the problem has been removed. The alcohol problem has been removed. And whenever I take that more globally, I can use that for any area of addiction or excess or anything like that in my life. And it's a true miracle to have that be removed and to not step over that. my friend I'm in the book with the other day, she said she had a really hard day. And she's like, I wanted to eat a chicken sandwich. And she's a vegan, or she's mostly vegan. And she's like, I just came home and I just wanted to eat a chicken sandwich. And then I beat myself up for wanting the chicken sandwich. And I was like, wait a minute, honey, like, whoa, you wanted a freaking chicken sandwich instead of a drink. Like, you didn't even think about a drink. You thought about a chicken sandwich, and you're beating yourself up for wanting a chicken sandwich. It was an awesome example, because we all do that, right? It's just like never good enough. And I said, no, like how, and she's been sober less than 2 years, so it's like, how recent in the past would you have gotten drunk as hell over your day, or that would have been your first thought, I want to go get drunk. Like, your first thought was, I want a chicken sandwich. That's a freaking miracle. So yeah. And then step 11, I really feel like with step 11, if I were to live the way step 11 says in the book, I would be enlightened. I really feel like it's very deep and high level spiritual, like a way to live, of going through the day, asking what is our next step. Like, it's just really being connected to God in every moment, having the mind of God, or trying to connect to that mind in every moment, being the blessing in every moment. We relax, we take it easy, we don't struggle like, oh my God, I need that tattooed on my forehead. But if I could really apply living, asking God what my next step is to be, intuitive thought or decision, all that stuff, like, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. So again, it's something for me to strive for. And, that common misconception that in AA meetings we hear, oh, step 11 is just the prayer and meditation, and step 10 is this nightly inventory. No, that's not what it is at all. We saw what step 10 is. Step 11 is actually the nightly inventory and the upon awakening stuff. So I remember I figured that out maybe after 5 years sober. I was like, wait a minute, step 10 is not, there's nothing about that in here. Now, again, if you go look at the 12 and 12, who knows what it says over there, but in the big book, that's what it says. So yeah, just seeking through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact. And doing the best I can with that. And I love how in our big book study, we kind of have this idea, everyone is God. There is God in everyone. So, working with others is working, step 11 in a way, because I'm connecting to others when I'm doing the big book study process with them. But even just like Michaelis said, he's like living in meditation. And to me, that is also kind of like my purpose and my intention is, and the intention of high level spiritual beings. It's not that you meditate in a cushion in Bali, and then you get up and are an asshole and forget all about that. It's actually, the process is supposed to be, you practice when you have no distractions, when you can close your eyes, when there's not chaos around you, and then you start bringing that energy once you get up from your meditation cushion, and being that in that space every moment. And life does become a meditation as we practice. And what I love about working with others is, I feel like that's a meditation for sure. It calls me forth to be present. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about anything else for the most part. And then it's like, okay, I get out of a book call. It doesn't mean I leave that energy there either. How can I then interface with the next person I see in the world in the same energy I am in the book call with somebody else? And then that, again, it's just like meditation, that space grows and grows to where I am now interacting with everybody from that space of service and giving, connection and love to the best of my ability. And I fall short many, many times. So, but at least I have that to shoot for. So That's what I was thinking about 10 and 11. So would anybody else like to share, have questions, comments? I will not call on anybody, but if you would like to, you can speak up. Nobody wants to share? Going once. Okay. All good. You don't have to. It'll just be the Natalie and Michaelis show again, which is a fine and good show, I hope, for all of you. So, Michaelis, any closing thoughts? Anything you thought of when I was sharing? You want to say?
Yeah, I love you guys. That's it. Danny,
Yeah. What?
so Danny, I hope you feel better.
Yeah, Danny's feeling under the weather. You're muted.
Thank you. I hope I feel better too.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Julio. Hi, Holly. You're muted as well. I don't know if you want to say something or.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say. Multitasking. I had to get my kids down in this process. So I'm just glad I could tune in though for a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm just I feel like I've been really disconnected from 10 and 11. And obviously I haven't done 10, 11 the way you guys have put it out there. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of mind wrapping because I've just done it different ways. And Natalie, you and I have talked about the two-way prayer piece. That was pretty profound for me, like in the last 5 years or so, I learned about. But that's a tool I haven't picked up lately. And I don't know. So just more to carve out, I guess. It's all part of the journey. I don't know.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Holly brings up the two-way prayer, which is from Wally P, the Back to Basics workshop model. If anybody knows or doesn't know what that is, it's kind of it's supposed to be back to the way that the founders used to do the steps in the early days, where you just do it really quickly. I think Dr. Bob took 5,000 people or 8,000 people through the steps in his sobriety before he died, because he was just doing like one person a day. You do the whole steps. So I think the Back to Basics comes from that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Holly probably knows a lot more about it than I do, but that's my basic understanding. And that out of that, oh, go ahead, Holly.
Oh, it comes from there. And then I think it actually even goes a little bit farther. I think it was one of the pieces that was founded in the Oxford group that was carried through, although many pieces obviously filtered and fell to the wayside, but that was one. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting book on it from Wally P. So yeah.
Actually, can you explain the two-way prayer for those of anybody who doesn't know? Because I can, but you know way more about it. So could you explain that?
Yeah, I can give it my best shot. It's probably a little edited by my own personal way of doing it, but yeah, I mean, I was first introduced to it when I did Back to Basics with a group of actually ladies, and actually my sponsor at the time had learned it from her daughter's sponsor when they were in France. And in a nutshell, it's basically doing an 11th step upon awakening. It's a written format. So, like the few set rules that I always say are like to just I invite my higher power in. I, focus on like my thoughts being not a place of being self-centered, being honest, being truthful. Um, and then I just kind of write. And it's just a free flow. It's like again, they're not rules, suggestions. I don't know how to do it. I guess they put it out there. Like, so the big things are don't edit, don't critique what you're writing. Just let it flow and let it come out. You can ask specific questions, you can ask general questions. You can just see what kind of comes. But my experiences, or the more I've done it, the more that I really feel like my higher power has uh, spoke to me, I guess, in that way. A lot of times I do get answers, I do get clarification. There's also something in it called having a sharing partner, which is can be a sponsor. It just kind of like it talks about in the amends piece. I mean, it can be a sponsor, it could be a trusted friend, it could be a sister or brother in the program, but someone who can kind of read, you share what you write and can listen from an objective mind, because the answers don't obviously come like, oh, this is, higher power talking, like sometimes a little twisted. Or what I've gotten to is kind of like a hint. And then like my sponsor, because that's often who I had shared it with at that time, would say like, hey, I think this is where this is knocking a little bit. Why don't you come back to this tomorrow and ask more questions? Or why don't you try writing about this? And again, it's just really to basically outline my higher power's will for me. And I think another piece in my experience has been like there's a part to, so to speak, obeying to what what you're being told. And that can cause blocks, just like the blocks that you get when you've got resentments and fears and stuff like that. Um, you can have blocks in your writing or in this communication or this two-way prayer. But again, my experiences, I mean, I definitely have been in the room where people have gotten very direct responses. I often get a lot of, patience and kindness and tolerance. And, this big thing I'm looking at just like drifts into the small present moment, you know. But I always believe it's really what I need to hear. So there definitely, I know, are some talks on it. And like I said, there's a book from Wally P. Is it, I can't remember the name of it. I can totally picture it's like a pink book with like a green box around it. And I think it might be how to talk to God or something like that. I'd have to look it up, but it's just a very interesting practice. And it does go pretty far back. The guy that actually writes it had done a lot of research on the founding of this practice. And one of the last people that was actually there when the practice was first started. So I don't know. That's kind of my rough outline of it, but it's totally in the back to basics too when you read 10 and 11 in there. So, because I always struggled, I really could not shut my damn mind down, and I still struggle with that, but this was a tool that really, like, I don't know, really worked for me. And I really felt my higher power's presence. And I was able to, when I do this and I sit down, I am able to get into that spot and that zone and that quiet and that openness to hearing my higher power. And I think that's kind of like the whole objective of it, because yeah, I don't know. It's just a tool that's really worked for me in the past. Got to pick it up.
Awesome.
Hope that helps. Makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Well, Holly, I hear that, I mean, she sounds very passionate about it and that it's really worked for her. And yeah, her enthusiasm sold me on trying it for myself as well. I haven't had the discipline, or I don't know, I guess I got into my head about what I was writing, which is of course what she said you're not supposed to do, but like judging it or whatever. So but yeah, it's a nice prompting to maybe pick that up again. And I mean, step 11, we can do whatever we want, we can do whatever works for us. So if that works for you, try it. If you like it, if not, it's you're not failing, you're not bad and wrong. It's just whatever. We are all need to find what works because we're all very different. So thanks for sharing that. There is a good talk. I don't know if Holly sent it to me, but somebody sent me a really good talk from Father somebody, not Father Martin, but some other father with and he really explains it, and they have this little group and they all kind of do the writing and they share. So I do have that link somewhere if anybody's interested.
Is it
was
Father Bob
I was Father
or
somebody.
Father Bill or something? It was funny because for a hot minute I was like, whoa, they just like elevated Bob or Bill or something.
Oh.
I was like, what the hell is this? But yeah, no. I have heard that there's a tape out there on it or whatever, a recording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So reach out. So Julio has his hand raised. Julio, would you like to share? Got a
Yes,
couple
Natalie.
more
Thank you.
minutes.
Yeah, good. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Holly. Thank you for sharing. It was very inspiring. Please share the name of the author. I would like to check it out. Well, my experience on this subject is, well, I do write every day. And yeah, I just have two columns. The first one, I write everything I did good. Mostly it's my meetings, and I pray in the morning, and yeah, say I'm grateful for things, and yeah, mostly that's what I do. Sometimes when I do meditation, I write it down on that column, and the other one is the things that uh, I I call it how is it in English? It's chances of acceptance, right? So it's like the things I don't like very much, but it's an opportunity to practice acceptance and say yes. So it's mostly the things I don't like, but some days there are, I mean, recently there are not things to put on that side, and I just started writing. And yeah, sometimes I just write my insights or the things I feel like it's like yeah, inspiration or something like that. And after that, every time I go to bed and I listen to a recording a Mexican sponsor made, and yeah, it's a kind of a meditation. It's yeah, like would you make some your breath, and after that you start making a review of what you did the whole day, and yeah, at the end just accept the things you didn't like and ask God the disposition to change things in your life, and yeah, like working on the character defects. And yes, that's mostly what I do every day. And thank you.
Oops, I was muted. Gracias, Julio. Julio from Mexico. So we've got like Western Hemisphere represent today. I'm the only one on the other side of the world, but happy to have all of you here today. Thanks for sharing. Everyone who shared. Anyone else have any last thoughts, burning with desire about anything? Okay. Well, I really want to thank you all for coming. Thank you, Michaelis, for speaking and coming as always. I mean, I want to acknowledge Michaelis for his example of service that, he's never said no to anything I've ever requested. We do the podcast together, these meetings. Of course, he took me through the entire process. And those of you who know my resentment list was like 250 something. My amends, 150 something amends. So it was a long journey, and he just had total willingness. So it's inspiring to have that space to receive that and so I can offer that myself. And that's how we all, get to show up to when we work with others as best we can. So, yeah, thank you. And thanks everybody for, Danny doesn't feel well. Holly is managing her kids, and Julio jumping on midway through as well. So really happy to have you all here. And yeah, we will have one more meeting. Well, who knows, maybe more after, but we will plan to have a step 12 one, which will be fun because whatever, we pretty much always talk about that, but it'll be nice to round out the official 12 steps through this big book meeting that we're having. So we'll make an announcement on that.